So Doc, yes, like I said, thankfully you are here.
Okay, thank you.
Before, you have been compelled to issue a 7-page statement.
Right.
First of all, do you think sincerely that you ought to have waited until that? Because people have just been asking questions, including, do you know how much the state is contributing?
I think, first so I'm happy to be here. I mean, I think you've been able to make a Newsfile one of the very good ones we have to listen, partly by your intellect and the sheer force of your personality. So, also, let me begin with the posture, the issue of the posture in the 7-page. Actually, I wanted to release this almost to dampen what I felt was quite a rising temperature. So the posture I really took, and really that's what you kind of brought out in the conclusion, was that as a country, we've gone through these periods where critical national infrastructure come up. And the same issues, we almost sometimes bastardize this thing. And some of the issues that are being addressed are critical, I mean, really procedural issues. We don't want to trivialize them. But at the same time, I think part of my concern was that most of these discussions do not also bring into consideration the impact, the long-term impact of the project. So it really becomes almost a whole national conversation on procedures. It is legitimate, they are legal. I'm not trivializing, that is his role as a parliamentarian. And I think one of the things we've been able to do as a country, there are very few countries in Africa that has been able to do that. We've created this substantive uncertainty that democratic theorists will tell you is critical for political accountability. That any day we have elections, we can replace a government. And we've really been able to have this vibrant opposition that keeps the government on its toes. I think we are one of the few countries who don't even celebrate it enough. and kind of in a major part thanks to people like Honorable Ablakwa, I mean, who really keeps this accountability at the heart of our democracy. So first, congratulations for the consistency. And we don't quarrel with you on really trying to live up to your parliamentary obligations. But should I have waited for this? I mean, when is the right time to issue? I felt this was the right time, partly because, the National Cathedral was almost kind of brought into the public domain. Quite a lot of noise about it, excitement. And so even the space, to say, look, who actually should be doing the talking was almost a space you had to compete for. So I think the timing was right, I think, to really begin almost rationalizing the conversations. I mean, the National Cathedral brings quite a lot of emotions for different reasons. For those who think in a secular state, the state should have nothing at all to do with religion. For those who think that, look, no matter what, there are almost some sacred spaces that one should be buildings and others that one should enter. So it's really raised quite a lot. And sometimes you almost have to let the conversation go on to a stage where now you can come in and start this process of almost rationalizing.
How does the Secretariat feel when the finance minister or the government is being asked that you didn't come to Parliament to ask for approval specific for this amount you're spending?
Right.
And you hear the government hedging, or anytime they give a response, it is to say, look, get off our backs. What is it? We decide to spend, we are spending money from the presidency's budget. So what are you talking about? How do you feel I
think we'll get there. I mean, I think the finance minister talking point last week indicated that, look, if there are issues of procedural issues that have been breached, they'll resolve them. I mean, I think the key issue for us is really that this idea that somehow there's this grand agenda to deceive the nation I mean, I think that's really, and it's been part of our history, and it's nothing to do with, I mean, NDC.
Is that not a self-inflicted situation?
Yes, to some extent,
so that, for example, I'm holding these publications.
Right.
In 2018, August.
Right.
We have immediate past General Secretary of the Christian Council, Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni-Frimpong, saying government not using taxpayers' money to build National Cathedral.
Right.
Emphatic. Then in 2019, October, you have Archbishop Duncan Williams saying, I don't see why people should fight National Cathedral project when it is not funded by taxpayers.
Exactly.
And now taxpayers' money, as much as 200 million Ghana cedis, beyond what Okudzeto expects, will be in excess of $100 million for relocation and all of those things comes in. Don't you think it's self-inflicted?
It is. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's right from the beginning. I mean, and I thought, look, the president was very categorical. I mean, actually, that was his first independence speech. We've used the independence days. I mean, so there's absolutely no way this could be a private project. Unfortunately, I mean, I think it's just once again, I think, look, people, all of this was new. So there was a certain level at which there was quite some excitement and different. I mean, part of the reason why the Secretariat kept quiet and some of these things is that if we had come out, we'd be contradicting certain figures. So it was almost, sometimes you almost have to retreat. I mean, just for the right moment and now to begin to clarify. Because there was kind of expectation, different people understood it differently. And I thought this, I mean, this idea that this...
Or the Bible's admonishment that you are quick to listen or hear, but slow to speak.
And we've done that. I mean, I've been very frustrated because sometimes I needed to, look, to calm public. But at the same time, if you did, you're almost going to contradict and kind of... And it's part of our politics, and it's whatever politics you're doing, that there's sometimes you just simply says, look, this is a war, okay?
So again, how do you feel as a secretariat or the trustees and directors that Ghanaians, and this is public funds, they have no idea how much of their money will go into it from the government. Personally, I sit here and I keep asking that question. So what is it? Is it that we are planning as we go on? We are not sure, but I should know ahead of time.
Yeah, ideally, yes. I think, look, for me, when this project was given, it was okay. And I saw Bright talking about what cathedrals are used for. These are historic. So every project has to be situated in its context. So the first question I asked, look, what should be the role of a national cathedral in a secular democracy whose majority citizens are religious? You have to. So it was really, the project was first and foremost almost an intellectual project. That, okay, so the president wants a national cathedral for the country. We operate a secular constitution. So how do you then make that national cathedral relevant? In both legally and others, but in a country also whose citizens, both historically, aspirationally, are almost acutely religious. So then you begin to say, look, part of doing that...
And to be blunt, you want to say 70% Christian.
And yes, and the Supreme Court says between Christians and Muslims, almost 90%. I mean, from the Abrahamic faiths. So then the issue really then becomes, how do you ensure that this national cathedral really becomes relevant? It's contextualized. Okay, at a point in time, it was just a religious thing. In our case, and so that's how we began to add all these other things. To say that, look, to really get the state involved in a secular democracy, in a religious project like this, we almost have to reconceptualize it and put it almost in the ordinary language of nation building. And to do that, you needed to add all these things we've added. Bible museum, biblical gardens. So one, it begins to then address the relevance for this 90% Christians, but also to say, look, how can we then use this infrastructure as a means to transform our society?
You meant to say 70% Christians rather than 90% Christians.
No, I didn't say 90%, but I said of the Abrahamic faiths.
Okay,
because
Abrahamic faiths.
The Bible, actually, I mean, if you go to the Bible Museum, just last week, there was an interesting lecture at the Museum of the Bible on the Bible and the Quran, because there's so much affinity that if you come to the museum, I mean, if you take the Quran, 70%, about 60, I think they say, it's almost derived from the Bible, because they are all from Abraham. And so as part of what will be in the museum, actually it will be relevant almost all Ghanaians.
So my question was, how does it feel for you and all your leaders?
Yes, I was coming to that.
That you don't know the state's commitment in exact amounts?
I think it will come out, I mean, because it's an ongoing process. I mean, so for instance, Honorable Ablako says we are not clean with the state's commitment. We said the land and its preparation. You see, when we say the land, it's a category. So that category also means if any building was broken, there has to be compensation. So that's why we didn't say just the land. The land and its preparation is a category, an all-encompassing category that includes that.
But preparing land, that's not, that's
but you can't
different
prepare,
from compensation.
but you see, when someone says, I'll give you land and prepare it for construction, you take it for granted that all those elements are included. I mean, really. I mean, and I'm not. I don't want to trivialize what you're doing.
I know you may
but
have
I'm
a
aware
difficulty.
of those discussions.
You have a difficulty, but I cannot tell how exactly you respond. But
okay.
I have to ask it. You were with the finance minister on the GTV program.
Exactly.
When he was asked the question about lack of parliamentary approval,
right.
His response is what you said a while ago about we will be told in due course, sort of.
Right.
Are you happy about that?
See, I think what he wanted to establish, that there's really not been an agenda to say we want to disrespect Parliament. I mean, I really think that is very critical, Samson. I mean, really, that there's not been a grand agenda.
But he's breaching the Constitution. You don't spend before you go and ask permission.
That's what he was saying. He was saying, that's what I'm saying, look, this has to be resolved between them. He was saying that, look, I mentioned seed money to Parliament. I mean, so this idea that I spent without indicating that the government will spend on the cathedral is not true. I did tell Parliament, are there procedures that lead to disbursement? Okay, that's a different set of issues.
No, but Parliament doesn't approve seed money in the vacuum.
No.
It has to be specific.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is that the idea that somehow the government is giving money to the cathedral without Parliament even knowing that the government had planned to give money. I mean, there's a conceptual issue here. And he says, look, we came to Parliament to say that, look, this will be the role of the state in the National Cathedral project. And I remember when they were preparing the minister for chieftaincy, but I normally give them, everybody has to give their briefing.
When you were vetting him.
Yes, normally they ask you, look, you said briefings to him. And one of the things I did was how much the state had given to the Cathedral project. And it was actually asked in Parliament. And he says, look, the state had given $25 million. So I think it's for us, the Secretariat, it's really this issue that somehow there's a grand agenda to deceive the nation.
But elsewhere, this conduct, we are told, can collapse an entire government.
You see,
not just the minister being sacked.
You see, those are the things that I think, look, this will be resolved between Parliament and the Executive. I think the Finance Minister was very humble. It says, look.
The questions that Bryce Simmons raised, what do you say? He says he takes the architectural design work.
Right.
If this man was coming from England or from the UK, he will be entitled to something not more than 3% of the cost. In Ghana, the professional fees are set out by the profession would have been not more than 4% of the cost.
Right.
But here he is earning 10% of the cost. How does it feel for you?
I think, look, these are issues that were discussed. I mean, the Attorney General was involved, PPA. Other questions of percentages, they can be addressed. But I think in all the discussions, so once again, procedural issues, percentages and everything, absolutely, they are subjects for discussion. They can be discussed. But I think for me, what is lost in this is really this idea of then, you see, using that as the building block to then almost trivialize the role of this architect. I mean, I remember some of the discussions I've had on the National Cathedral project, like this museum. I mean, this is the leading museum. I remember when I went there. I mean, it's almost like, who is this guy? I mean, these are, I mean, billion-dollar projects, really. When I went there, when I mentioned the name of the architect, I mean, immediately they said, look, okay, Ghana is a serious country. I mean, because the same architect had built the National Museum of African American, he had designed it. The contractors who built that museum are the same contractors who built the Museum of the Bible. In fact, so I remember the first time I went, the senior vice president of the construction company, Clark's, Brian Frege, was there. I mean, when they just, so sometimes I do understand, I mean, in a country where we have so much, that when you hear some of these figures, but what normally, and I'm not, David can defend himself, the government can defend the contract for him, but there's something that gets lost, that sometimes you attract some of these names. I mean, when David came here alone, I mean, look at the number of people who've come, including Dave Chappelle. And says, look, I want him to build a house for me in Ghana. Look, even the house you build for him, even cover the cost of his design. But he attracts, there are people like him who almost help to, and sorry for my use of the word again, elevate whole industries because of their presence. David is one of those. And as
I'll be sincere with you that I'll be sincere with you that as listening to you, I can tell the feedback I'm getting from our viewers and listeners that there are things that you should be taking seriously. You don't seem to want to give them serious attention, but you are looking at the religious moral questions rather than the questions of accountability and transparency,
what I'm saying
which are very serious.
They're very serious. That's why I started by saying we should not trivialize those. You see, but those are not issues we can resolve on Newsfile. There are institutions that are responsible for that. I really think, so what should a program like Newsfile do? The issues of accountability are so critical. I mean, to the whole transformation of our country, the survival of our democracy. But those issues are not resolved on Newsfile. There are institutions that are there. So that's why the finance minister was saying that, look, Parliament will call them to answer. I mean, and I think we really, because if we don't do that, what we do is that you end up almost incensing the nation. I mean, tensions are really, and I think for me, the key issue is that we should be careful not to fall under a certain threshold.
When you hear government spokespersons, including the national chairman of the NPP, say that Okafor Didi, and you hear a member of the trustees say that, well, David built a house for God when there was difficulty. How does that, make you feel?
Look,
I don't know, but I feel really terrible about that.
I think there's political communication. I think I mean, that's why I'm saying that, look, I was hoping with this 7-page that will begin to rationalize the conversations. And so when I talk about elevation, I'm not saying that, because I think that some of them, in the midst of when you feel like you're being attacked, the normal reaction, the default reaction is kind of you defend. But I think we've come to a stage where we can begin the process of rationalizing the discussions. And that begins by saying that, look, what Honorable Ablakwa and others are raising are critical issues. I mean, and I want to state it here, the accountability issues are so critical. We are not.
So are you setting?
All I'm saying.
Are you setting at the point of your statement when you talk about the partnership with the church in Ghana and in the diaspora? Are you setting of the state's involvement? When does it terminate?
It's a national. You see, that's what I wanted to start with. The National Cathedral is a national monument. It's a state monument. In fact, and I think that's part of, I was saying that I think one of the things the president did, and he's not gotten credit for, is to say that, look, for a national monument, I really want us to build it in partnership with those who might have, disproportionate use of this monument. So actually, it is a state monument. And he's saying, look, the church has always been an active participant in our transformation and development. Will the churches who will almost make more use of this help in developing this? So it's not the other way around.
So the government actors, including the president, are miscommunicating to us. They should be telling the citizens that you are funding this project. It is not land and preparatory state.
It's not seed money.
You see, the president says, I'm proposing a partnership for this. This is a national project. But I want to do this in partnership. And so we have to sit back and say, look, to really bring clarity to the partnership, you have to define the roles of the two partners. And for me, and so that operationalization was my role. It says, look, how do we make sure that we clearly define the state's role in this? In the partnership to build it. Yeah. So then it becomes, look, first is the architect who had already been appointed. And that's, for me, I know that it's part of we run a Republican democracy. Some of you know that. And that means practically that every 4 years, in our case, we almost give our power to dream to one person. I mean, that's all really the whole notion of a Republican democracy.
It is not an unchecked power.
Exactly.
That's why Parliament is there, and that's the concern of many.
But what I'm saying is
that when the minister says land preparatory phase,
right,
seed money for preparatory state, and the citizens cannot know ahead of time,
right,
and you in charge of this and behind this you put your everything into it,
right,
you can't even tell where that terminates.
No, we can't. I mean, what I'm saying is that, look, even for the Bible Museum, May 4th, just this May 4th, where we met the technical team that way, that's when they actually finished all the concepts. So now if you say, look, this is coming here, you know exactly what is coming there. And so then now you know all the costs. So people think we are literally hiding from, it's been an ongoing process, because we have since, look, how do we ensure that a project of this nature, and I'll be coming back to Bright's questions about whether we can attract the kind of tourists we think we can attract. When you're doing it, you want to make sure that, look, we've included all the elements that we believe would allow us to attract the kind of traffic needed here. And so it's taking quite some time to arrive at those. So it's only, I'll say, May 4th, we had our last meeting, for that, and then they will give us their cost. Then you have the full cost. Right. And I think the conversation then should be, for instance, what should be the state's role when it says seed money? What is the total cost, and what should be the state's contribution to that total cost?
Okay. I'm being told to take a break here, but before I do that, can we have an idea the contribution of the church so far, because it's a partnership you're working with?
We in my
statement.
We said that there will be a press conference on June 27th, where everything. But every month, by the way, every month we send the contributions to the church leaders, all the church leaders, every month. That look, this is how much is coming from the churches, and so we want this to be a more comprehensive submission on June 21st, so that the trustees themselves will present it to the nation. Okay,
I'll take a quick break here and return. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis platform. We'll be right back.